Okay. Hi, how are you?
Nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Denise.
Wendy,
Richard.
Hi, nice to meet you.
the real estate board.
Yeah.
I'm a realtor as well,
Yeah.
so I'm here with two hats on.
Yeah.
The organization is called the Princeton Curriculum School Salmon Entrepreneur.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, good. Works for
Whatever
me.
works, right? Yeah.
Omnibus? Wow, that's quite the name. Well, you must have given it to me. I was pronouncing his name. Lots of smiley faces.
We're so excited to listen to you. That's why we're all
Great.
smiling. We're super excited. Hopefully
A lot of pressure.
It is a lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure. By the road.
I know, isn't
At all
it?
the,
Most
at all
people.
the real estate stuff, everybody
Everybody
fills
sits
up the
at
back.
the back.
I know.
First. Yeah, and then the people
We
that are
have,
late
yeah,
have to come into the
internal
front.
meetings, same thing. It's like being back in school again.
Good morning,
Tell
everyone.
you this.
Good morning, and good morning to our panel. Thank you. There's a few more coming in, so I'll let folks come in. And please make yourself comfortable. We have coffee if you need to refill. We have a table off to the side there if you need to put a cup down. And I'm just going to let people settle in. Come on in. My name is Kyla McLeod. I will be your facilitator for the session today. I have the privilege of working with your Career Services and Experiential Ed team, as well as your program manager in the back of the room there, Samantha, who happens to be one of my best friends, so I can do that, Samantha Wood. Right, because there's a lot of MGM students in here. So thank you for taking the time to join us today. I'm going to take a moment to introduce our panel, but I also just want to frame the session a little bit. We have a little bit over an hour, and this is a discussion, right? It's a career-related discussion, so in a great sense, you will drive the conversation and the communication, and it is two-way. It's being filmed live, and it will be streamed and then recorded. So if you have thoughts or questions, just to be mindful that please speak slowly with your questions so they can be heard, and you'll be recorded in all of your questions, so just remember that. And please come on in and join us. Make yourself comfortable. And again, this is all about you and getting what you need and want out of the session, and we're very grateful and thankful to have a fabulous panel here to help facilitate this conversation. So I'm going to start down here at the end, and this is Karina Ludwig. And she joins us, and actually I have to say, Karina was in my grade 9 math class. We just figured that out this morning. Yeah. Yeah, we've met about 25 years ago, yes. And she's president and partner of Function Fox. And what I will ask all the panel to do, if it's okay, before we get started, once I've done a quick introduction, if you can then go back and explain a little bit more about who you are and what you do, if that's okay. Great, thanks. Next on our list, we have Edward Vanstone. He's from Flight Centre Canada. Area leader. Wendy Morton. Oh, sorry. Nope. I skipped right over. I'm very, very sorry. I skipped right over Denise Aviard, who's human resources for HP Advanced Solutions. Okay. And then we have Wendy Morton, who's at Board of Directors, Victoria Real Estate Board. Richard Clement is with Crankset Group. And so we have a bit of a variety of representation here. I'm going to I'll still go back to Karina and ask if we can ask each of our panelists to tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, what brought you to the career that you have today. And then we have a list of questions that have been generated by our students. We can follow that list, or we can let the conversation pop and flow as it should from the people that need it here today. Okay, great. Thanks, Karina.
So again, it's Karina. I'm from Function Fox, and we're a local high-tech company. We focus on helping small creative companies with time and project tracking for their companies. And we put that in place, like I said, about 13 years ago, and we were worldwide. I got my career in this from doing a design background, so I have a bachelor's degree in graphic design. Grew up here locally and then moved to Vancouver, Toronto, Calgary, New York, and kind of came back and used all the skills from all the different places that I learned into the career that I have today, which is president of Function Fox. Daily basis, I think we'll get into that a little bit more on the questions. So.
Again, my name is Ed Vanstone. I work with Flight Centre, global travel company. You might have seen our offices in Victoria, Canada. A company originated in Australia in the 70s. I sort of came to a career with Flight Center haphazardly. I'd done a sociology and business degree at UVic. Traveled for a year after, didn't really know what I was going to do, and started grassroots with the company when it was in a heavy growth stage, and I've sort of grown up with them on the island for the last 12 years. I now oversee all 12 of our branches and 70 employees on the island. Quite a heavy operational focus is largely what I do now, of salespeople. Yeah, and then same thing, we'll kind of get into questions on what you'd like to know about that as we go.
Hi, so I'm Denise Agard. I'm the Manager of Strategic HR for HP Advanced Solutions. We are a subsidiary of Hewlett-Packard. We're global. We provide business, process, and IT outsourcing services to the provincial government. That's our primary client. We do some private outsourcing as well. And I came here not so much planned. I'm one of those people who just kind of ended up in HR, but I have a business background and just kind of throughout my career decided that HR was where I wanted to be, and it's where I landed, and I love it.
Okay. I'm Wendy Morton. I'm a realtor with Newport Realty. I've got two hats on today. I'm also a director at the Victoria Real Estate Board, which is the local association that all realtors in this area belong to. I've been a licensed realtor for 13 years. Prior to that, my education background is from BCIT in the marketing area, and I worked in wholesale grocery and that sort of thing before moving to the island 17 years ago, and that's in looking around for a career that kept you involved with people. Real estate was where I headed, and I love it. So I'll be happy to answer questions from either the real estate board end of things or working as a realtor.
Richard, I was going to say Clement. My accent obviously isn't a local one, it's a Northern Irish one. More famous now for making things like Games of Thrones and interesting TV programs like that. My background, I just moved here a year ago, is what I should say, and since I've been here, I've been trying to setting up a new business, which is the Crankset Group, which is a business dedicated to helping other small business owners be more successful, make more money, get more time, what it is that they want via a series of coaching workshops and seminars and that sort of thing. But my background is in technology, and I set my first IT business up in 1997. Ran for 7 years, made a lot of money, lost a lot of money, had a whole lot of fun. Got up to about 25 employees at one point. And that was sort of through the dot-com boom, etc., etc. And then latterly I got into internet marketing, and I set up a business in Ireland that went pretty well, and sold it a few years ago, and moved over here at the behest of my wife, who was brought up here, and we decided to bring our kid up here. So that's my background.
Thank you to each of you, and thank you to those of you who are joining us right now. What I would like to do is I'll start with the first question on the list that was generated to get us going and flowing, unless there's someone with a burning question right now. And then after that, I'll help just catch the arms and the hands that are coming up so that we don't talk on top of each other, but we'll let the conversation flow. Okay? So the first question, again, this is a list of questions that was generated by the student groups as a whole in preparation for this day. The first question to our panel: if you knew then, what do you know now? What would you do differently at the beginning of your career? So if you knew then what you know now, what would you do differently? So, the best advice you can give to our students possible. Thank you so much. Where should we start? Anyone that wants to pop?
I'll start.
Great.
That was a good question. That one sort of hit me. In the real estate business, and I've got my realtor hat on right now, the best thing you can do to ensure your ongoing success, but even in the interim, just to make sure that you do a good job while you're learning, is to find a mentor. And it's something that I think many years ago in real estate, it was something that happened a little more, but unfortunately one of the downsides of the way we communicate now is that you don't end up face-to-face quite as much as you used to be. So it's something that actually the real estate board is focusing on as a tool to be able to provide to the local companies to help them bring new realtors in. As much as we've got a lot of realtors in Victoria right now, we always need new people coming in. And the best way to ensure that they're going to be successful is if they fundamentally help them. So that's what I would do differently.
So, I think for myself, if I was to go back and do anything differently now, I think I would feel more confident to share my creative ideas right from the beginning. It's hard starting out in the workforce, and I'm a creative person, and I have a lot of thoughts that I like to share, but in the beginning it's intimidating, and it's very hard to put yourself right up there and share your ideas for fear of people not agreeing with the ideas or whatnot. But when you're new in the workforce, especially, if you have great ideas, just recognizing that they're always good ideas, and people may not always agree with them, but don't hold back because of that. Really put yourself out there and make sure you share your unique talents, your unique ideas, your unique perspectives, because people will draw off them and appreciate them. So if I could go back, I'd probably tell myself to feel a bit more confident doing that right from the beginning.
I guess if I look back, a couple times I've sort of caught myself maybe working you have that next goal or the next thing you want to do in sight, and you might work a little quickly towards that. The way that you achieve that or get to that, from what I found, is that you're great in what you do now, and you own the moment and the success in what you're currently doing, and that really provides opportunities that maybe you never even expected you wanted when you own that success in what you're currently doing, instead of trying to push yourself too far ahead too quick.
I could just say that I definitely would say dedicate myself to lifelong learning. I actually left the education system for the first time straight after high school in Ireland, and it was definitely a bad decision looking back on it. And I didn't go back into education and go back and do a degree at night time until I was about 27, I think it was, something like that. And definitely lifelong learning is something that I would say you have to dedicate yourself to, even if you think you're very well qualified coming out of university and you go for masters and you go for your doctorates and whatever else you might do. Ongoing learning is definitely something that you should dedicate yourself to. And in my experience, the more you know is the direct proportion to the amount of money and the success that you will have in business. So that's definitely what I would say.
Thank you very much.
Just finish off with, don't be afraid to fail. I think I'm a keener by nature and kind of an overachiever, and there's opportunities that I looked at that I was kind of scared of taking on, because I'm like, I don't know if I 100% can succeed at that. So I would say just don't be afraid to fail. It's better to try and not succeed than to not try at all. And that's, I'm sure you've heard that before, but it's actually true in business. So if you have the right attitude and the right keenness to try something, that's much more important than not doing it, not succeeding.
I'm going to go to the group now and see, is there any questions we want to start with? Anyone have a thought or a query for our panel? Nothing burning? Oh, one in the back there, sure thing.
Okay. This is to Dennis. As you were saying that, at the beginning, you should always share your ideas, right? Any thoughts, any innovative ideas that come to your mind. What do you think if a newcomer in a organization, how acceptable would his or her ideas be to the superiors, supervisors, managers? Are they easily taken in?
Yeah, well, so the question is, when you're coming on board, how accepting are companies and managers and supervisors of new ideas? Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, I'd like to be able to answer and say they're very accepting, but I can't speak for all workplaces out there. I can say that workplaces nowadays are very strongly focused on diversity and recognizing the diverse ideas of all individuals from different cultures, different backgrounds, different ethnicities. And companies nowadays, in my opinion, can't afford not to leverage off of the ideas of others. I think that with the volume of work on people's plates and the demands of companies and of the industries out there, if you don't use people's ideas from all levels, then you're doing yourself a disservice. So I believe that that is the direction companies are going. For my company in particular, we encourage the ideas. We want people to bring them. We have an open door policy, so anybody who wants to contribute any kind of an idea can talk to their manager, talk to HR, talk to the president if they want to. And so speaking for my company, it's very important, and people are listened to at all levels. And I like to think that all companies out there who want to succeed are doing the same thing. So I would focus, you know, if you do have an idea to present, I would certainly focus on how you present it and make sure that you can back it up when you do and that you've done some research on it so you can really sell it.
I think the very best companies now treat their employees as stakeholders, and they're always looking for input on, you know, how the processes within the business can be improved, right from, you know, people who might clean the buildings right through to the, you know, the vice presidents and presidents of the organization. They're all given the responsibility to improve and be the best that they can be within their positions. And, you know, you just got to look at the likes of Google and places like that. You know, they will, you know, they give their employees a day a week to do their own thing. And as a result, you know, particularly from Google, you've got products that have come out, you know, that definitely wouldn't have come out otherwise. You know, those are the good companies, and, you know, I would say to you, don't be afraid to try and find a good company that fits you. Don't just take, you know, the first thing that comes along. You know, have a look at the company, have a look at their structure, their organization, and how they do it.
I would say too, though, I mean, keeping it real, be prepared for some resistance. I mean, like we said, I'd like to think that all companies out there are going that direction, but you probably will come across some instances where you feel like people are resisting your ideas. So be prepared for that, but don't let them stop you from going forward. You'll find the right person in the right place in the right time to be heard.
Who's next?
This is a question for Richard, because you just mentioned that the concept of lifelong learning process, I totally agree with that. But can you give me some suggestion, like how do you adapt the most your knowledge to your workplace, and how to make most benefit out of it?
Good question. You know, I think it's a whole lot easier these days, obviously, with the internet and all that technology. So a lot of people who are experts in their field are able to put, you know, information online, and they're sharing it on, obviously, social media. They're on their own blogs and that sort of thing, and maybe if they're a bit wider known, they're getting published on certain industry-specific websites and magazines, that sort of thing. So it's very, very easy now to find people who know what they're talking about, and to take what they, you know, take what they know and see what you can do with it. In terms of applying it to, you know, to your business, you know, I think that's the more you know, the more you'll be able to apply it. And of course, maybe one thing I should have said when I said, you know, the more you know, the more money and the more successful you'll be. I think it's not necessarily that, but you've got to apply that knowledge. Obviously, that's the key thing. You could, you know, have the most knowledge in the world, but if you don't apply it to helping other people and helping other businesses, then that's what's going to make it happen. So, and again, you know, I think the very best companies, and, you know, you will get some resistance to this for sure, you know, will give you time to learn on an ongoing basis. But a lot of times that, you know, that they won't, and there is resistance to that because it's not productive time, etc. You know, so, you know, to make the most of your own career, you're probably just going to have to do what you need to do outside of normal hours, and spend time in the evening time, weekends, doing your research and bringing out how you can apply it to your specific circumstances.
Okay, thank you. All right, right here in the center.
My name is Felix. I come from the Master of Gold Management. And I just want to ask each of you from the different industries, but I know different industries have different marketing plan or promotion plans. So how could you, I don't know whether this is a business secret, so what's your marketing plan when you compete with your competitors? And how could you make you win in the different industry? For example, I know flag centers, every month I purchase about 2 tickets from here to Edmonton. But I also know you have travel agencies, but in the Expedia also, they're good at online, so how could you compete with these people? So you prefer on the online strategy or you prefer on the offline, such as the road shows, or put commercial on the medias, kind of like this? Thank you.
Yeah, I can go first on that one. Great, really good question. For our industry, you know, that's a particularly evolving challenge. You know, the likes of Expedia and their nature. You know, if you look at the web development in most other industries, those companies sort of were the big existing players that kind of developed. And in travel, you know, Expedia was never a travel agency. They came out of nowhere. So, you know, they only have that web platform. So, you know, what we're really trying to do now to kind of have a strong foothold in the marketplace is to have a very strong multi-distribution to our consumer. And by that I mean we have a strong web platform, we have a strong bricks and mortar for the customer to come into. So if you look, you know, around the city, we actually get a very high retail lease space. We pay quite a heavy rent in order so that we have a high visual presence for the customer and the community, so that we're, you know, kind of entrenched in having that relationship in our markets and in where we exist. And you know, the company actually grew originally on that model or principle of go into a city center, open up a lot of stores quickly, make us look a little bigger than we are, and then get satellite pockets out in the community, out in the rural areas, once that relationship and that awareness to the brand has been built. You know, so that's sort of our growth and marketing strategy, and, you know, how we position our business. Yeah, could go into like advertising and stuff as well, but that opens up a whole different can of worms. So.
I prefer the local stores because I feel it's like when I book tickets online, no one talks to me, but when I go to the stores, the people agency will give me some advice or suggestions, or they will talk friendly. But I mean, open more local stores, they will increase your cost of the business. So what do you think about the difference?
Totally, and that's a great, you know, that's our biggest challenge right now is, you know, we need to have, and we do actually have a fairly strong cash position to be able to support that growth. But you're right, like to get those people trained and to get those stores up and running, like opening up a new market and new locations is probably one of the biggest costs that we bear. But you know, once the business is established, you know, that, and because we're big enough, we can sort of support the growth of those new stores and new markets. So, like for example, right now our heavy growth is in, we don't really have any locations in Manitoba or Saskatchewan. So, you know, the profitability of our Vancouver, Victoria offices are supporting the cost to go into those new markets. And it will, historically, it takes us about 3 to 5 years to get them up to a level where you know, they're making money. Because we have to earn that relationship, right? Sometimes it can be quicker if we have good people, but you know, it does take us that time to kind of earn that relationship with the community to a point where we have a sustainable profit out of it.
Thank you.
I would say, keeping it more local, I can't comment on the whole HP marketing strategy, but on HPAS, HP Advanced Solutions, we're a client-driven business. So when we're selling our business, we're doing it through bids to the provincial government or whoever else might be out there, ICBC, private companies. And when we're doing that, we have a whole sales department and a business development department, and that's what drives our business. But we're not just selling our service, we're selling our people. So we're not just focusing on what it is we can provide to the client to support their business or their servers or their technology or whatever it is. We're selling our people as well. Here is an environment that people would like to work. And a big reason for that is because when we do take on new business, we're often taking on the people with that business, the staff with that business. We're a unionized environment. The BCGEU, although we're a private company, because of the contracts that we've won, we've brought unionized individuals over. So we're selling ourselves as an employer as well as a service provider, and that's kind of part of the unique part of our strategy, is what we can give them beyond just the support that they need technically. And that's how we win a lot of our bids. It's competitive out there, of course. We don't win them all, but we're not, in our office, we're not selling a tangible product. We're not selling laptops or printers or whatever. We're actually selling support services. So that's our biggest focus, that and our people, and even just our physical environment. We're in a beautiful location, so we focus our marketing strategies on the whole of our business rather than just a specific service.
I would say, you know, in response to sort of marketing your business and looking at the competition, you know, look at the competition and do what it is they're not doing. I think the secret to marketing these days, and you know, go and read the likes of Seth Godin and people like that, is being different and standing out. And if you're jumping on the sort of the Me Too bandwagon, as I would call it, and you're trying to sort of look at other people or the competition and go, oh right, they've done that, I must do that too. You're going down the wrong road. People, I think it was Mark McCormick from IMC, the sports management company that he founded, said all things being equal, people will buy from people they like. All things being unequal, they'll still buy from people they like. And you know, that's definitely worth remembering whenever you're trying to get people to, you know, to come along to your business and be different. And I just literally came across a local company there. They sell vinyl windows here in Victoria, and they're just looking for a little bit more business. They're just a sort of mum and pop business. And he was able to tell me that since he went online and he posted a photograph of him going out on a job in his pickup truck with his dog in the back of the pickup truck, he has got business from people who have dogs and like dogs saying, the only reason I came to you is because you've got a cute dog. So, you know, there's a point of differentiation that, you know, enabled him to get business. And I think that's probably the crucial thing, is don't worry too much about the competition, other than don't do what they're doing, and try and find some sort of personality that you can apply to your own business that will get people to buy from you because they like what it is that you do or what you stand for.
I'll just add to that too, because that's what I was thinking as far as from the real estate perspective. Every realtor is in essence their own small business, and how they differentiate themselves is basically how they stand out, what they do differently, how they present themselves. You don't, you know, we're much like HP. We don't actually have a product to sell other than what we do, our service. And so we need to convey that to people in some way. And the referral is you know, a way that a lot of realtors find business. But oftentimes, if people have been referred to you, the first thing they're going to do is go to the website and see what you look like. See if they can find out a little bit about you and see how they sound. See if you have a dog in the back of your truck or something like that that's going to make you stand out. I have a dog, and I've had more people get in touch with me and say, you know, I like the fact that you mentioned your dog on your website. So, you know, I'm a dog person. So it's how they connect with you, and you do need to try to make yourself stand out a little bit so that they're going to choose you over the realtor next door. But definitely promoting yourself in any way you can, website, various media or industry events, that sort of thing, just getting out and meeting people and being prepared to show them what you can do that's a little different.
I think this is a question for you, because I know that there's a lot of immigration coming to Canada, mostly in Vancouver and Victoria, and the price of the house is continuing to increase. So what do you think is a good chance to buy a house now, or you think we can wait?
Oh boy! Why don't we talk about that after? I think we're getting a little off the topic of work here. So yeah, I'm not going to provide any real estate advice at this point. Thanks for asking.
The price in Victoria and Vancouver is totally different. I'm afraid in the future, maybe 5 years later, Victoria become another Vancouver. So take a card.
Yeah, Wendy will be out there after.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'll just finalize and sort of, I absolutely agree with what the rest of the panel is saying. We definitely do things that's different than what our competition is doing. We actually look at what are they doing, and we try and do the opposite direction, because you want to be something that not everybody else is. And it sounds counterintuitive, but it really works. Email, social media is huge. We look the opposite way. We've been doing direct mail. It's very successful. If you think about how many emails I get a day, which is, I'm sure everyone here gets hundreds of emails a day, how many actual direct mail pieces do I get? Not even one a day. So we stand out with direct mail. Sort of, it costs more, but it's more effective. So it's always looking for something that's a little bit different. And referrals is huge for us. So our people, we really put our people, we have profiles of each of our staff and sort of a little bit about them. I have dogs and stuff. It's on the website too. And it's important to really have the people stand out. So we really focus on the people and make sure that if our customers like our staff, then we know that they're enjoying their job and the customers are going to typically enjoy the product.
Okay, question. So
So just to follow up, Karina, you said you do a lot of ad mail, unaddressed or addressed ad mail, or whichever one you choose. Now, typically, you said that you've been successful. What is your return on physical pieces sent out versus what you spend? Typically, I understand it's 2%, but what's your return?
It depends. So for we have an email sort of marketing plan. We send out an email on a monthly basis to about 180,000 people. We get about anywhere from a 12% to a 17% return, depending on the content of that mail. If it's more of a sales blast type event, where it's just kind of a promotional sell, then it's usually lower than that, so it's going to be around the 10 to 11%. Those are high percentages.
Very high, yeah.
Very high percentages. And that's because we have a really good quality list, and we make sure that people that we are sending to are opt-in and that they want to be, on our newsletter. We're not sending them spam every 2 days. And then from a direct mail perspective, it depends on the list, and that's the biggest part of it. But we're seeing anywhere from 4% to 8% returns, which is huge for direct mail. Now you look at that and you say, okay, well, that's lower than what you're doing on email. So I'm talking about an open rate as opposed to a return rate. So that's where the numbers might not necessarily match up. But we're getting lots of customers from actual direct mail pieces where someone says, we have a name on it that says, hi, I want to talk to Jenny. So we know it's coming from direct mail. We put offer codes on it. We see that people are opening it, they're coming to our site and signing up for it and actually purchasing it.
So just to follow up really quickly, so it's not unaddressed, it's actually direct mail. It's not blanket, send it like, unaddressed to 500,000 households or,
no.
100,000 households.
So in terms of who we're sending it to, if it's addressed or unaddressed, it's very specific. So we want creative companies in X region, and we know their address, and we're sending it to either the owner or president, and we either have their name or we're putting owner or president on the actual mailing piece. So it's getting to the right person, and we're doing it so that it's not in an envelope. We're doing it so that anyone in the organization can open it. So even if I'm the receptionist, I can open and go, oh, this looks interesting, before I pass it on. So it's kind of getting a lot of eyeballs on it, and postcards and things that are visually enticing for people to look at.
Thank you.
If it's okay, I know we have a bunch of hands, so I'm going to try to catch everyone in order as they popped. I'm going to go to Pooja next, and I'm going to go back.
This is on social media again. What do you think? Is it driving your business? And what role does it play in different industries? And would you prefer social media over the traditional media?
I'll start from a technology perspective. I think I was speaking to someone else this morning about that. We just hired some recent graduates, and they thought that social media, Twitter, Facebook, everything was really important, and that they're going to spend a lot of their day on it. That's not the case in our company. I'm on there every day as the president, but it's not something that I spend hours on a day. It's probably 15 to 20 minutes in terms of perspective. That's for our industry. I know if it's a PR company or someone that's more news related, then they might spend more time, but for our industry, it's not as prevalent in terms of the rest of the work in terms of percentage time.
I'd say I do see the value in social media in HR from a recruitment perspective. I think there's value in it for sure. It's also a valuable tool internally for some work projects. We haven't completely got on the bandwagon with social media in our company, and it's not because we don't believe it's valuable. It's just one of those things that we haven't fully embraced it yet. We do, given that we do provide services to the provincial government, we have some specific privacy laws we have to work within, so we have to make sure we take all of that into account when we are using any social media for anything. Do I think it's the direction that companies should be going? I think it's inevitable that you do have to consider social media now for all of your business activities, and providing it's being used in the right way, then I think it can be a very valuable tool. I think you need to be careful about some things. I mean, we have an HPAS Facebook page, but what we put on it is it's limited in a way. You just have to really focus on how you're going to use it and make sure you're using it in the most effective way for the company, just like you would for your children, monitoring what's on it and how it's being used.
In real estate, we need to be cognizant of the different people that we're trying to communicate with, from young people, first-time buyers, all the way through to retirees and elderly people that are looking to downsize. So I think for every realtor, you need to be communicating in whatever way reaches that group of people. So I think we recognize as a group that we need to be using social media to connect with those people that want to communicate with us in that way. But we also have to be very careful of how we use it. You don't necessarily want people to see Facebook pictures of you out on Friday night, doing what you do on Friday night. It's more of a building a little bit more of an information package about yourself. And personally, I find that it's a good way to perhaps initially connect with somebody, but nothing beats the face-to-face meeting with people.
Yeah, I'd sort of kind of echo those notes of there's huge bonuses in it, but it's actually quite a danger for us as well. And that, I mean, information can go so quickly and spread so widely on social media now. We actually have 2 people hired specifically to crawl the web and like keep a close eye on that information to make sure that we're kind of are involved in the message or the information that's out there, so it's not widely going against you. And there's positive things you can do with it, but these days it's actually more something you have to control, almost of like just to kind of keep a positive spin around it, and that almost has to be the focus, which is kind of sad a little bit. I don't like that aspect of it, but there's a truth to that that's certainly become a reality, and that's been pretty quick, like last 6 months to a year. That's really been something where we were like, oh wow, we have to have a whole department around this, which is crazy. And then even within stores, like as much as the positives, people will push the benefit of it, it can really be a workplace distraction. Social media devices can actually be very counterproductive to the work space and the work day if not used properly. And so for all their positives, there's also risks. So it's an emerging item, though. It's a good question in the sense that, as a business, you can't ignore it. You have to have a large awareness around what's happening in the space you want to own with social media.
And a policy.
And a policy,
yes.
Yeah.
Most companies, if they don't really, we have a very strong policy around the use of social media. And
I think, as an internet marketer, and I've been doing it for the last over 10 years now, it's hugely important. There's no doubt about it. But I would actually say to people, and I surprise some of my clients when I tell them this, it's now just part of the overall marketing package. Is Facebook the right platform for your business? I don't know. Is your target market sort of in that area where lots of young people could be your target market, in which case Facebook might be great. But on the other hand, you might be better off advertising in a local magazine, in a newspaper or something like that, or because the readership's much more targeted. So of course it's huge, and platforms like Pinterest, which only been along in the last couple of years, are now getting excellent numbers of people, obviously both visiting, but using it and coming through. And the e-commerce statistics from people who come via Pinterest to their websites are very, very good, particularly compared against other social media platforms like Facebook and particularly Facebook. But as the panel's already said, it's not a dangerous game. It's a two-way conversation. That's what's happened. Is that the social media has enabled people to have a voice, and the likes of TripAdvisor, for the travel industry is huge. Are all the reviews that you get on TripAdvisor genuine and from the heart? No, of course they're not. They're people who've got an agenda at times. But most people, and most sane people anyway, will look at reviews and things on TripAdvisor and other places like that, and as long as you're participating as a business and sort of responding in some kind of way, that they'll see through that and say, okay, well, maybe they didn't do this, bit of business very well, but they've responded and apologized and try to make up for it. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. But it's a platform you can't ignore. That's for sure.
So that seems that it's an important thing, and you just can't ignore it. So on that, what percentage of your time and budget would you spend towards, or are you already spending towards social
I would say for us right now, I would say almost none. And again, it's not because it's a tool that we don't use. Like I said, we have a policy around the use of social media, both using it in our workplace, incidentally or limited use, as well as if you're going to use it, what you can and cannot post. You know, you can't speak on behalf of the company, and all your opinions are your own, that kind of thing. From a business standpoint, I think it's somewhere as a company we recognize we need to place a stronger focus on, but just because of resources and volume, it's just not something we've really had the time to put into it just yet. So very minimal. Another thing that I was going to mention that a little bit less public is internal social media options as well, and having internal blogs to help each other out internally is a way that a lot of companies are going as well. And I think that we will get there. It's just not our number one priority right now. And one of the reasons for that is because when we're selling ourselves, we're not advertising ourselves, we're actually doing it via bid, so it's not as strong of a marketing tool for us.
I'm going to try to keep it a bit in order, but is it social media related question? Okay, if you don't mind, I'm going to go right to the back there. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Chandan, and my question is for Dennis. I would like to know what kind of support services you offer to businesses in terms of business process and IT support services, and do you specifically target federal government or provincial government?
Provincial government, Ministry of Finance, and the Ministry of, and they keep changing their names, forgive me if I don't get it correctly, but it used to be Labor and Citizen Services. Excuse me. So business processing, we provide, we support MSP payments, so we accept all MSP payments. We have a collection center to collect on MSP payments. So from a business processing standpoint, we have a collection center, a legal center to do things like skip tracing, which is more beyond the collections aspect, processing payments, and from the IT side, server support, we have a hosting side and a an IT side, so we provide server support. Virtualization is a big focus for us right now. We just opened 2 new data centers in Kamloops and Calgary, so virtualization is a big thing for us right now. And tools and infrastructure, storage, backup services is quite wide. It used to be, those services used to be provided in-house by the government, so when we won the contract, they chose to outsource it, and we took the contract. So that's kind of the bulk of our business, and I mean, we continue to throw more and more bids out there, but really the opportunities are very wide in there as far as support goes. Our latest contract would be our hosting contract, and that's been very, very successful.
Thank you.
Okay, so I know Elizabeth, you had one earlier. Do you still have?
Yes, please.
Okay, yeah.
Hi, welcome everyone. Just a quick question for you, Mr. Clement. What specific marketing tools do you use for your facilitation? Like, for example, do you find that you do facilitation, correct?
Yeah.
So, like how like I know like you've heard of Rob Can, okay? You know that company that does that as well.
Yep.
So do you is it just sort of through your realm of your circle they go, oh, this is Clement, he did this in Ireland and we want him to do our facilitation? Or what, like, are you aggressive about getting such work, or?
No,
okay.
very non-aggressive. You know, when I moved here just about a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, I didn't know anybody here. Literally, it was a blank slate, and you know, having a reputation, but it was a technology reputation back in Ireland was one thing. You know, I guess if people care to look me up on LinkedIn or whatever, then they might find that information, but a lot of people don't, and when they first meet you, they take you at face value. So I've just basically set about, and I was just talking to Wendy this morning there about it. You know, I've just set about just trying to get myself known in Victoria. What I have noticed in Victoria here is it's very much about who you know. And yeah. So you know, I've been out there sort of doing a bit of networking, participating obviously online, because that's kind of what I know in LinkedIn groups and stuff like that, and just trying to very much spread my knowledge and expertise, and put out there what I know and what my thoughts are and that sort of thing, and let people, you know, sort of engage with me, and you know, they can come along for free into the groups for a couple of times, and if they get it and they like it, then they'll stay, and if they don't, then they won't. So that's been very much my my focus.
Because it's a new place for you, I apologize, sorry. Because it's a new location for you, are you targeting in a different way the clientele that you hope to get?
Yes, so I know who I'd like to get into the groups, and obviously my background is in technology as well. So we only allow one of each type of business in the group. Sorry to get a little bit specific about my business here, but so therefore, I know the groups of businesses that can work well together in that group environment. So doing a bit of research, I guess.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Okay, next back here, and then I'll come back to
Hi, my name is Raymond. Question about outsourcing and consultants. I'm wondering if there's a trend towards hiring consultants versus actually taking on new employees, and if so, what are those consultants for? Like, what specifically? Like, is it creative? Is it IT? If anybody can field that question.
I can start on that one. We the question, if you didn't hear it, was in regards to outsourcing and whether, what types of roles do we hire for outsourcing. We try to keep 100% of it in-house. That's more from a control standpoint, so that we can actually have team meetings, have group meetings. While we can do that with freelancers, it's a little bit more challenging. We have a couple contractors. Those particular positions, we have one where we outsource all of our Google AdWords. Very specific sort of discipline, budget is associated with it. The rules are very clearly defined. So when it's clearly defined and well outlined, it's easier to outsource. So it's typically those roles. In terms of other freelancers, we have a freelance writer. They're in France. They used to be one of our staff members, so it works very well. We know how to work with them. But typically we try and hire people on board so that they're part of our culture, they're part of sort of, they know how we live and breathe with our customers, and they're part of our team, and that echoes in the work that they do, as opposed to just being an outside consultant that we talk to from time to time. So that's our preference.
I would echo that, and one of the historical strengths is we have a very large vertical integration, our own ticketing, our own wholesaling, and the culture is such that we want to really invest in the people in the company and grow them in all those roles that we require, and that's anything that is sort of key to our operations. That's we develop it in-house as much as possible. There will be some outsourcing, but it's items that are not very customer facing or going to be all that integral to the overall success of your operations.
I would agree. I think that's what businesses are doing. They're outsourcing what they see as non-core parts of the business, and that makes sense. If they're not, particularly if they're smaller businesses, then if they're not experts in keeping or communications or marketing or AdWords or whatever it might be, it's not their core discipline. So they're more likely to outsource that. But I think from a business point of view, it's dangerous to try and outsource freelance. You can take people on sort of part-time that are absolutely core, to delivering whatever it is that you deliver, and whether it's a product or a service. I think that's dangerous. So I think the clever companies will keep all the core competencies in-house and with full-time employees, job sharing, whatever, and then they'll outsource sort of the non-core stuff.
I would agree. We definitely focus on developing our internal talent first, and if we do any, we don't really outsource. We are an outsourcing company, so the client would like that very much. But we outsource to that. Anyway, so we focus primarily definitely on developing our internal talent through succession planning and learning and development and whatnot, but there are occasions where we do need to bring in contractors. Usually that would be for a specific project or a specific period of time, or if we're looking for a specialized skill set that's very hard to find and we have a contractor who has that skill set, we usually bring a contractor in until we can find someone else to fill that role. We prefer not to, but there are times when it makes more sense to bring in a contractor, especially if it is for a shorter period of time. But we will always look at our internal talent first, and then a contractor would be sort of our resort outside of that.
I'll talk with my real estate board hat on now. And I echo what the others have said. The real estate board also tries to keep everything in-house that they possibly can. We're continually sort of rejigging duties and things as the market changes and as the things that the board needs to provide to the members changes. We're always trying to be one step ahead of that as far as what the staff at the board can provide. And you know, the occasional thing that we do of a project nature, we may hire an outside facilitator. You know, strategic planning comes to mind. We've done that a couple of times in the last few years where we've had someone come in and facilitate we had a member session actually where we had 1/4 of our membership, which is a huge number of realtors to get out anything, come to a half-day facilitated strategic planning session, which was hugely valuable. And for us, it was, you know, he had the skills to do that, and you know, it was something that we put all the nuts and bolts together. So that we also try to keep it in-house.
I'm going to go, I think, to Nadal.
Yes.
Oh,
I have a very general question. I am international student here, and for my first time I will be in the Canadian workforce. Do you have any general recommendation, or do you have any previous experience that you can share with us? We can learn from it.
Sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean. Yes, and actually, sorry, I just say that because we have recently provided a work experience opportunity to somebody who is new to the Canadian workforce. And we have a diversity committee in our company as well that focuses on different cultures and how to work with them. Probably the best advice I can give you is do what you can to get experience in the work environment, whether it's voluntary. Just get in there as best as you can. And I know that's not the easiest to do. One of the struggles we have with that is from a resource standpoint. We don't have the internal resources who have time to spend with the people who need this sort of attention. Like when you're just trying to get used to working in Canada, that's a hard part. There are a lot of associations out there, like the Intercultural Association, you may or may not know about that, who help individuals such as yourself with work placement opportunities. And I think probably a really key thing to recognize is from a recruitment standpoint, how your resume is prepared and how you sell yourself where you're from may be very different than how we view it here. So learn a lot about what Canada as an employer looks for when they're looking to bring on talent, and really educate yourself on that. We're not, I mean, from a Canadian standpoint, being really aggressive with an employer and bringing yourself in and walking in and asking to speak to people or sit down with people, it's a great tactic, and it's one that in my opinion used to be very valuable, but employers don't have time anymore to respond to that sort of an aggressive like sales approach for yourself. So maybe soften it up a little bit. Focus on the employers that you want to work for, and just really learn a lot about that particular employer and how you can tailor yourself to that employer particularly. But also be willing to go out there and accept work in just about anywhere, so you can at least get used to the environment and the Canadian workforce, because that's gonna be the biggest struggle, is just understanding what Canadian employers are looking for. But I mean, that's a great question, because it is something that we actually is a big focus for us right now in our company. So I was kind of glad you asked it, but anyway.
I can only echo that from looking at a lot of resumes. So we see a lot of international resumes, and the format is very different. They'll put their picture, their date of birth, their marital status. None of that should be on your resume if you're applying for a Canadian job. It sets you apart, and not always in the most favorable way. So really get, I'm sure you have it in school, or I can send you copies of it. But look for Canadian resume and kind of what should be included and what shouldn't. Social insurance numbers shouldn't be on your resume. And phone numbers should. You'd think that some people actually don't include phone numbers. That's very important if you want to call back. So, and I would agree with what Denise says. The really what looks like a keener that's coming into your office, is not always very welcomed because we're really busy and we'd like to spend the time, but we'd rather set up an appointment to do that. So
another one thing I just want to add is language skills. Is in our environment, we're a client environment, we have a lot of local contact with our clients, so really focus on your language skills, because depending on the job you're applying for, that could be very key in securing the job, is the communication.
And as a starting place, if you are applying for a job that you really do want, like if you wanted to work with our company and you're applying for a sales position job where you're on the phone 100% of the time, language is going to be very important for that role. So if you're not as confident or don't have English as your primary language, try applying for something that's not customer facing, because you'll have a better opportunity to get into that company if it's not language facing. So that's what I'd recommend. I think there's a lot of really keen, skilled candidates, and language can kind of sometimes set them back if they're applying for a customer facing role.
Maybe one thing I would say is that one of the preset questions actually was how important is social media, such as LinkedIn and Twitter in work search and career development. And LinkedIn is huge, absolutely huge. If you're not already on LinkedIn, get on LinkedIn, because the information that's available, there's a whole work employment part to it, and you can do research, and use your connections, and to try and find businesses that you might be interested in. So depending on what industry you're heading into, go and do the research and see if you can use your connections to try and connect with somebody in that business at whatever level, to get you some inside information on what it is that that particular organisation might be looking for. So use all the tools at your disposal, and the more knowledgeable you are and the more information you are, even when you approach somebody, the more professional you're going to be, and the more professional you'll come across that organisation.
Yeah, I'd probably kind of echo that. It is about you too, right? And just make sure that you're taking the time to look at the company, and that its core values connect with yours, and that you're kind of presenting yourself in that connection. That's the interviews I do where I really try and press that it's as much about the person looking into the job and what they're going to get out of it, because we're going to invest a huge amount into that person, and no matter what, make sure that that job's giving you what you want equally to get around, right?
Can I come to that? I think I have a question. Yes.
My name is Jenny. I just hearing from each one of you, I'm hearing a lot about culture, people skills, services. I'm wondering, how do you determine that when hiring someone from a resume, besides their technical qualifications, right? I do agree with Richard that continue learning is important, but an employee is a package, right? How do you determine their people skills or their service skills from looking at the resume?
I can address that one.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me. I do a lot of the interviewing, and 95% of the interviews I decide in the first 4 seconds, and that's an actual stat. So it's the energy that you bring into the room. It's how you present yourself. It's how you put your resume together, and how you've sold yourself before you even come into the room. Do you show up 20 minutes early, which is annoying, because you kind of expect that the person's going to be ready for you? Or are you showing up 15 minutes late? There's a big difference. People that came into the room late, I probably wouldn't consider you, because if I want you there and I expect you to be there at a certain time for our organization, the team's counting on you, you've just missed the ball. So.
Sorry, Karina, I'm talking before giving an interview, like looking at a resume, right? Because perhaps you have a resume and you have someone super qualified, and then you have another resume and you have someone that's not that qualified but have excellent cultural people skills. So just from looking at the paper, how would you determine that? Is there any way to determine it?
Sure. Typically where you show personality. So if they're doing volunteer work, you can kind of get an idea of what their interests are, because they're investing their own personal time. They're not getting paid for it. It's also how they put their cover letter together. So if you're just sending a resume, I'd highly recommend adding a cover letter as well, because that actually shows who you are, how you write. It's more than just, I like this job or this career, but this is what I'm all about. This is what I'm trying to do. This is where I'm trying to get in your organization. And it shows that you've taken the time to learn more about the company that you're applying for, rather than just, here's my resume, I'm hoping for, someone to catch that one. So from a personality standpoint, I love volunteers. A lot of people put interest. I'm interested in soccer or football or tennis or whatever the case may be. That shows a lot of personality. And if you look at that and say, our team enjoys that type of person, you can get a lot from that, and I think that adds value.
Thank you.
I absolutely agree. I was just going to say initiative. When I'm looking at a resume, CV, and I've hired and fired a lot of people in the last few years, it's initiative and personality that's jumping out of that resume. And personally, I don't know what these other guys do, but if I'm interviewing somebody for a position, I'll actually, once I've decided there's some personality in that resume and here's the batch of people I'm actually going to interview, I'll interview them from a personality and culture organization fit, first of all, before I'll even, decide, can they do the job. And I'll often hire people who are a better cultural organization fit that don't necessarily quite have the skills that I would have ideally liked.
Thank you.
That's true. My environment, it's a little bit different in that we are a unionized environment, so as far as resumes goes, we actually have to go by a select criteria. So all the resumes we get internally that meet this criteria are screened in. So from an internal standpoint, being a unionized environment, we work under a collective agreement. We're really just looking at the resume to see if you screen it or not. Outside of that, though, as far as showing your personality through your resume, it's like Karina said, how you write your resume and whatnot. There's a chart that I had that showed how the eyes work when you review a resume, and really in the first 10 seconds of looking at a resume, an employer will decide whether or not they want to meet you. And one key thing I would say is the style that you write, but also really, really pay attention to your grammar and your punctuation, because that says a lot about your personality. I'm kind of known as the Nazi in the office around that area, and I don't know if that's a compliment or a detriment on my part, but if I'm looking at a resume and I find punctuation errors like in the first paragraph or grammatical errors, then I don't look any further, because to me that says something about your personality that wouldn't fit with our organization. If you're applying for a marketing job and you want to get really graphic, that's fine, but otherwise, show your personality without going over the top, and writing like you're maybe a little, like really tone it down, but just write how you speak really is one of the key things now. Write how you speak, but keep it professional and look for your accuracy.
No, not really my area. Yeah.
Okay, I can't remember the exact order, but I know you had it for a long time. And I just want to give about a 5-minute warning. We're going to wrap up in about 5 minutes. Okay.
So pursuant to that, there's always a mixed message behind writing a CV, writing your resume, writing a cover letter, and length and brevity, as well as ensuring that your personality comes through and that you're clear and concise and that you tell everybody why I should work for your organization. So what do you think? Long, short, clear, concise?
Yes.
Personally, we don't, a lot of organizations like us, we get a lot of resumes. I don't have time to read more than about a 2-page resume. So, what I always tell people is keep it no more than 2 pages. 1 if you can, but 2 pages is the limit. Nowadays, you don't need to attach all your degrees and your certificates and whatnot. It's not necessary. List them in there. If an employer wants to see them, they'll ask for them. We never ask for them. And keep it as succinct as you possibly can. There's different styles of resumes you can do. There's chronological, functional, targeted. We like the targeted ones, but I won't go into all those different ones with you right now. But back in the day, whatever that was, people used to list every job duty that they would do. I did this and I did this and I did this, and there's no need to do that. The job that you did and a brief description of what your responsibilities are should be enough, because all your resume is doing is telling the employer whether or not you're worth an interview. And we don't need to know every duty that you're doing that. If you can keep it to 2 pages plus a cover letter, that's great. And your cover letter really should be a brief summary, nothing really long either. So short, succinct. If a resume is 10 pages long, I'm probably still not going to get past page 2. So try to get it all in there if you can.
Okay, I'm going to go to a few more for questions here, so I know hands are popping, if that's okay. Great. So I know you've been waiting for a little while too. All right, so one here and then Theodore.
Okay, so this question is to the whole panel. Do you have like co-op and internship positions from time to time in your company?
Yes.
Yes, we're hiring right now. We're looking for co-op placements for sales positions.
We don't actually do co-op placements. We invest. The learning curve is really high, so we want the person to commit to a career, or that they should be seeking a career in this.
And that's the same with the real estate board. We don't have co-op positions with the real estate board.
We have a co-op program, but through Hewlett Packard, there's quite a not too lengthy process we have to go through to get to the approval of hiring co-op, but we do it. We wish it was a bit more succinct, but we definitely do. There needs to be a need for it, though. We need to make sure that we know exactly what it is we need this co-op to do. Unfortunately, we can't just, say, hey, bring on a co-op unless we have something defined that they're actually going to do, because we don't want them to come in and just make busy work. We want them to learn something.
Just because this gentleman has not yet asked a question, I'm going to head here and then. Okay.
Hey guys, my name's Christian. I'm a not graduate. I am going to be graduating for the BCom here in September, and I'm just curious about. Some of you have experience with recent grads, and I'm wondering if there are any trends that you're seeing with things that were missing coming out of post-secondary education, and things that a lot of people are really bringing to the table. And if there are, what they might be.
Yes, and I apologize in advance, but one of the biggest trends I'm seeing are students coming into the workforce recognizing the education is very important, but the best advice I could give you is it's no replacement for experience. I have actually had some situations with individuals we brought in right from school or with very little work experience, and the expectation when they come in is that they want too much too soon. I recognize the value in a BA or a degree or something. It's there, it's big, and one of the biggest trends I'm seeing is especially from the younger generation coming in with that degree and, for lack of a better word, thinking, I've got it, I can do more, give me more. The initiative is great, yes, but really recognize the value in experience. And the other thing I notice is that a lot of students coming out of school are very, very hard on themselves. They want to come in and they want to do everything perfectly to succeed. And like was being said over there, be prepared to fail. I mean, there's a quote by, I think, Michael Jordan, I failed over and over, and that is why I succeed. And nothing could be more true than that, really. In school, you usually have the time to put something together. You might get something that says, the professor is telling you, here's the project, I need it by Monday. In the workforce, you're going to get a project, and they're going to need it by the next afternoon. So understand that you're not always going to get a chance to apply everything you learned in the way that you learned it. And recognize when you come in that things aren't going to happen quickly, and don't underestimate the value of experience, for sure.
Yeah, I'd add to that. I mean, an apology as well, but yeah, there's certainly consistency, and you have to. The result has to be produced, and like that's not like a 2-week result. You will advance. We give a lot of recognition to people who move up, but you need to produce a 6-month to a year result of learning and something that you can stand behind in effort and work. And it does take time to build it and create it, and it's really on your responsibility to have that happen, not the employer. To a degree, and we're there to provide the tools and support, but you need to be the one that creates and builds the result.
I know Felix, you asked that this lovely woman at the front has been had her hand up to
okay. My name is Osi. This is for Miss Aveyad. Aviard, sorry. Okay. Talking about the skill gap between fresh grads and experienced potential employees. I'm thinking, would you, if you had like a CV, a resume in front of you, and you had to make a choice between a fresh grad from here or someone that had work experience but not a Canadian work experience, would you want to consider that, or would that be an advantage, or how would you, what would be your preferences?
Yeah, I think, and just to make sure I understand your question, so you're asking if there would be a preference between a local person with experience and
a local person without experience and an international person with experience. Yeah.
I think that a lot of that is really going to depend on the job. Again, with the international aspects, there are a lot of internationals that have technical experience that we lack here. And that can be very, very important to us. So if it's a job where the technical experience is the key component of that job, and it's the kind of job where there maybe isn't a lot of client contact, it's strictly just a technical focus, it may be better for us to go, to look more at the international person with that technical background. If it's the kind of job where language is a big thing, like we were talking about earlier, and there's a lot of client contact and interaction, but we feel the technical aspect can be learned, then maybe we would go the other way. It's a difficult question to answer because a lot of it really would depend on the job that the person was applying for. There's benefits to both. And again, regardless of that, a lot of it is going to come down to how the person presents himself on the resume too, right? I think probably if it was a toss-up, we wouldn't discount anybody if we brought them both in for an interview. For us, when you were asking about, personality before that, it's a really hard thing to do. A resume for us tells us if it's worth bringing that person into the door. The interview is, does this person fit with the organization, and can they learn the part that they don't have to do the job? So I don't know that I could say one or the other. It just would really depend on the position, I think. So sorry, that's not like a concrete answer. It's a difficult one to answer, but it really would depend. I don't see any more value in one or the other, though.
I've heard a few resume questions, and it's kind of important that the resume is actually not that key. It's, it gets you the interview. With the interview, that's really the decision. That's the focus, and that's if you guys are looking to go in, that's where your attention and focus should really be on those interview skills and like what kind of questions you're going to have. Behavioral, have examples of like recent things you've done where you really know how to control different situations. That's what the employer is going to look at and is really going to make you stand out. The resume is just going to get you in the door. Beyond that, we barely look at it.
That's very important. That is very important. I mean, at least in our company and a lot, interviews are not that technical anymore. We trust that the technical experience you put on your resume you already have. We know that from the resume. Our interviews are focused on behavioral and situational aspects. What were you in this situation? What did you do? We're looking for the competencies, the competency-based interviews. So that says a lot about the person.
We've got 3 questions left, if that's okay. I'm going to start with Felix, go to the back, come to the front. Those are our final 3 questions, if that's all right. Okay.
Thank you. So I just wonder, because Corona, you are from the technology companies, and Dennis, you are IT outsourcing, and Richard, you have the technology background. I just wonder whether you hired people have a professional, maybe marketing or PR skills or management skills, but lack of a little bit professional IT technology background. Or for example, Wendy's, maybe the people is good at marketing, but it's lack of they're not familiar with the real estate industries. Or for Flight Center, they're not familiar with the traveling or tourism industry. So how do people like this?
So you're asking us, sorry, excuse me, that they've got marketing skills, but they mightn't necessarily have the technical skills or the knowledge, and how we would feel about that. Is that right, Felix? Yeah. Yeah, I think the panel sort of kind of already indicated this. If we feel that the technical skills can be learned, if they've come from a different industry, but they've got that sort of marketing background and they're great, social media or PR or whatever it might be, then yeah, I would certainly consider that person. They don't have to have had the experience in my particular industry to be able to learn it, and again, the personality fit for me. And their ability, willingness, initiative, etc., are probably bigger things than the technical knowledge. Technical knowledge, Denise said, can be learned.
Yeah, true. I mean, if we need somebody with technical experience, we'll hire somebody with technical experience. We're a global company. I mean, I've been with this company for 4 years. I know a lot more about technology now than I ever did before, or probably really care to know. I do not have a technology background. That's not my specialty. My specialty is HR, and that's what was needed for this job. The portion of the technology that I need to learn, I've learned, but I'm not in a technical role. So yes, I mean, if you're a marketer, if you have experience in a technology company, that's certainly an aspect, but if you know how to market something, that's the key thing. So unless you're applying for a technical role, you don't have to have a technology background, as long as you're specialized in the field that you're being hired for. So.
I'm going to jump to the back.
Hi, my name is Amay, and I'm from the MGM program. I have a very specific question pertaining to your experiences on the panel. With a lot of competition coming in, you have people hopping jobs. So what are the key challenges that you have faced in your teams or your organizations in retaining those employees that you would never want to let go? So some of the key challenges, and how did you manage to address them when the proposal that they presented to you was very lucrative, and how did you overcome them? If you could just share a few experiences.
Are you talking about existing employees or bringing new employees on board?
Yes.
I can speak to that. We put all of our, not all of our eggs, but we put a lot of work into the people that we hire, and we really look at, like, more than half our team has been there for more than 5 years. So we're investing in our people every day, and we're looking at their work-life balance. That's very important to us. So if they have a sick kid or a sick grandmother, we make sure that they have the available time off for that. We also set group and team rewards. So if we do, last year in January, we said to the team, if we have this type of growth in our company, this is the goal for this year. If we hit that, we're going to take the entire team to Vegas. People stuck around for the year, and we all went to Vegas. But those are the kind of things where you just go a little bit above and beyond, and it's not something that we would advertise, hey, we take our teams to Vegas, but we care about our people, and we make sure that they have what they need and that they're happy at work. If they're happy at work and they're doing a good job, they're going to treat our customers really well, and that's just going to come back to us in terms of company growth. So.
Are you looking for an HR person?
Wait, I'm the HR person.
I think that we have like lots of trips and stuff we give away, but actually the one that I find kind of match that challenge that works the best is giving people a greater ownership and responsibility in the business is actually what keeps them around more often than not. Sounds weird to say, you give them more work than they want to stay, but there's a real truth that, the ultimate motivator is giving people that ownership and that trust, and that's sort of been, it's definitely a challenge, but I found that's sort of the biggest way to tackle it.
I was just going to say, I got to know all of my key staff, my technology companies, so well that I knew what made them tick. So was it the flexibility to to be able to take care of their sick children? Was it being able to go out as a group together on a Friday night for beers? Was it going 10-pin bowling? Was it going to Vegas? Well, didn't make it to Vegas, but we went over to London and went down to Dublin a few times and had some good times there. So yeah, getting to know people, what makes them tick, and making sure that obviously salaries were competitive. Although you didn't have to pay top dollar to keep people if they were happy in the environment. As the panel's already said, that's the biggest thing, I think.
These are our last questions.
Okay, fantastic. So, last question. So it's bifold. So in talking about resumes and the career and hiring, and just following the theme, how important is the years of experience on a resume? So, for example, I understand if it's less than 2 or less than 3, it's one thing. But what if you get resumes with people saying sometimes I have 10 years, 12 years, 15 years of experience. That's one. And a follow-up to that one is, how will you look at that automatically? Would you say this person's not green anymore, this person's not moldable anymore? That's the first part of the question. And the second part of the question is that when you look at the resume, you get the resume, where do your eyes go on first? So we've read the cover letter, oh, okay, so this is intriguing, okay, let me go through the resume. Where do your eyes go next? Does it go on the title, the person, what the person did, or does it go on the 3 or 4 bullets that you have what the person did in the position? So it's a long-winded question, so maybe Denise and then maybe Priya.
I don't mind going first. I'll share. We have 3 sets of core skills, and that's basically determines whether the person goes to an interview or not. You have to have 2 years of sales, some post-secondary, and 1 year in sales. And I have a recruiter that works for me. She looks for those 3 things and nothing else really, and then that determines the first interview stage. And we have 4 interview stages. So the resume really just provides that sort of blanket core skills information that because there's a ton of resumes that come through that are really just scanned through, and then next stage. It's not glamorous, but.
For us, again, it depends on the position. As far as years experience goes, it's varied. It really depends on the position you're applying for. We look like our postings always will say, this is what we want for education, this is what we want for experience, or an equivalency. So we focus a lot on equivalency. So if we're asking for a degree in business and 2 years experience, or an equivalent combination of education, training, and experience. So maybe not a degree, but maybe courses and experience and training that is equivalent to the knowledge you would gain with a degree. So it depends. If you have this much education, maybe less experience, maybe more experience, it really varies. I'd say from an entry-level position up to like a president-level position, it could range anywhere from 1 year experience to 20 years experience. I know that's a wide range, but it really does depend on the position and what else you have to support that. Where do the eyes go on a resume? For me personally, with the cover letter, it goes on grammar. And that's just me though, because that's a really important thing for me is does this person care enough to actually take the time to create a resume and a cover letter that is accurate and free of, don't get me wrong, if there's a comma missing, I'm not necessarily always going to exclude it, but it's a big thing for me. Where do the eyes go as far as titles and whatnot goes? To me, if somebody's applying for a job in my organization, I want them to target their resume to the job that they're applying. So I'm going to be looking specifically for the things that posting is asking for, the key things that posting is asking for. If they're asking for experience in a Citrix program, I'm going to look for experience in Citrix. If they're asking for leadership experience, I'm going to look for something that tells me you're a leader. So don't focus too much on your resume, always highlighting this and this and that. Highlight the things in your resume that are going to suit you to the job that you're applying for, because that's what we're going to be looking for. And like I said before, the first 10 seconds, an employer will decide whether they're going to continue reading your resume, so highlight those things up front.
I wouldn't have much to add to what she said. I echo a lot of it. From a resume perspective, if I'm looking at a resume, I'm looking at the cover letter, not so much about punctuation, but spelling. It's got to have your phone number, it's got to have your email address. You shouldn't be swearing on your resume, which is all true.
Real situations.
Real situations. If you're applying for a job at Function Fox, spell the company name right and don't put Thrifty Foods. It's just simple. These are really, really basic things, and you'll stand out just by having no spelling and applying for the job that you're actually applying for. If they say on the website, these are the 5 things I'm looking for, put those 5 things in your resume, put those 5 things in your cover letter. You're already miles ahead of everyone else.
Another very important thing too is apply for the job in the way that the posting is asking you to apply for it. If it says to quote the competition number, quote the competition number. If it says to email it, not fax it, email it, don't fax it. Nobody drops off a resume or puts it in the mail anymore, and the chances are, if they do, it's probably going to get lost. When you email it, it's going to a specific place, less chance of it getting missed.
One final thing, I would say that most good companies will craft their positions and the years of experience they're looking for so carefully, that's what they're should be attracting. So if it says 2 years experience, they're going to get people with 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 years experience. If somebody applied to me with for a job that says 2 years experience and they've got 10 years experience, that's probably a flag to me. It's like, what are they doing? With 10 years experience, looking for, applying for a job that only has 2 years experience. And the other thing, we talked about it earlier, is that I'm looking through that resume just to see, I'm looking for that initiative, having to check through that they can do the job. I'm looking for that personality, that initiative. And that might be on the cover letter, it might be we then show some of that other information that's on our resume.
I was to say too, though, if something is saying, like, say they're asking for 2 years experience, if you don't have 2 years, if you have a year and a half, you know, I wouldn't discourage you from applying because of that, because there may be other components of your resume that we feel actually make up for that. So don't be so specific. If something says minimum 2 years experience and you have a year and 6 months, I wouldn't say don't apply, you know, because you just never know.
I think the thing is when you're trying to get into a bigger company and you really want to weigh in, they're asking for 3 years or 4 years, but you have 8 years, hypothetically. Now, how do you get into the, you know, it's just that you want to get into the company. You might have worked in a different size of company, but anyway.
Great question, and I'm really sorry. We actually have a session starting in this room.
We're going to have I'll have a panel set up with there if you want to talk.
Okay.
As I say, our panelists will take a coffee break out front, and Pooja is going to come up and thank our panelists. So she's one of our student services, student activities assistants, and so we're very excited that she's employed by us. And she's also in a Master's of Global Management program.
Dear panelists, thank you for coming here and spending some time with us and guiding us through the questions whatever students ask. It is really helpful. We appreciate your time. And on behalf of RRU staff and students, I would like to thank you all. Thank you.
And thank you very much for the time and dedication you've offered to our students. This will be posted. We're going to do a little bit of editing and playing with it, so it's been live streamed. It will then again be reposted as a complete video.
Thank you.
Thank you.